It is no longer news that Tinubu reshuffled his cabinet. What is still funny to me, though, is that many Nigerians still don't understand the reasons why he reshuffled his cabinet, or the reason why some ministers were sacked and others appointed. Tinubu's aides claim that it is as a result of performance, and those who did not perform were sacked. But when you look at those that were sacked critically, you will discover that what Tinubu and his aides are saying, that his cabinet reshuffle is based on performance, is simply not true. Take, for instance, you have a Minister of Defense, Badaru. You have a Minister of State for Defense, Matawali. They are ministers, but insecurity has largely gone on unabated, taken more dangerous turns under them, and they were not removed. You have a Minister of National Planning, Bagudu. It's obvious that whatever his planning or his plans are not working because of the hardship of Nigerians. But yet, he's still there. He was not removed. You have a Minister of Information. You have a Minister of Power that have obviously failed Nigerians. Yet, they were not touched, they were removed. And then you have somebody like Uju Kennedy Ohanneye, the former Minister of Women Affairs, who, in my opinion, is one of the most performing, most visible ministers. But what do we have? She was removed. Why was she removed? Why was she removed? Now that brings us to the title of this video, The Hand of the IMF in Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle. If you look at it, you will see the hand of the IMF, particularly with the example of Uju Kennedy Ohanneye. As a minister or as a person, I did not fully agree 100% with her methods. But if you analyze her motives, you'll find out that it's in the right place. First off, there was this case with the United Nations, where she made allegations that United Nations was withholding funds belonging to Nigerians. Many mainstream media analysts and stations made it look as though it was misguided and misplaced. But was it? At the end of the day, that matter was not totally resolved, but it was indeed an embarrassment to the IMF and the World Bank led United Nations. Take that out of the way. You had the UN Women incident, which is critical. In fact, this is where the hand of the IMF begins to show. You have a United Nations Women's Program executed or organized by the United Nations Women's Program's office in Nigeria without informing the Minister of Women Affairs. Now that is wrong. All shades of wrong. But that's not the worst of it. The minister gets wind of it and goes there and makes statements that Nigerians have failed to pay attention to. What is this statement? She said it, that she will never support UN programs, which are effectively IMF and World Bank programs that are aimed at capacity building without any empowerment. She categorically said that she did not like and will never support spending hundreds of millions of naira on capacity building without any empowerment attached to it. Now, if you look or take her statement alone, you may not understand the gravity, the seriousness of this statement she made. But when you compare it to what somebody like the president of Uganda said about this same issue, you would realize how heavy and how serious her comments are. Museveni, Yoweri Museveni, the president of Uganda, said it. He said, look, that he's tired of all this capacity building that the United Nations and the IMF and World Bank are pushing. Because at the end of the day, the capacity building only goes to spend monies and does not empower anybody. The same thing that Uju Kennedy Ohanneye said was what the president of Uganda said. And in fact, he took it a step further. He said that when countries want to get money for empowerment, for execution of projects that will reduce cost of production, reduce cost of living for Africans, they never get such loans from the IMF and the World Bank. But if it is capacity building, it is very, very quick. That was what the president of Uganda said. Now, take that and put it on top of what the former Minister of Women Affairs said. Then you see how dangerous the IMF and World Bank is. But what actually exposed the hand of the IMF finally in this Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle was the trip to UNGA 79. The former Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy Ohanneye, was with them at UNGA, and she gave a press conference where she actually said that the president was in support of what she was doing. And then she also said something that Nigerians have also failed to pay attention to. She said, look, all the monies that was spent on the trip, on the Nigerian contingents to the United Nations General Assembly 79, that it was a waste of money, that there was nothing that Nigeria benefited from UNGA 79, and that Nigeria needs to take a second look at all of this trip so that they can design it in such a way that benefits actually come. Effectively reiterating what she said about capacity building without empowerment. Now, the United Nations, the IMF, and the World Bank certainly did not like this. Perhaps she was correct to say that Tinubu was behind her or supported her actions. But what she failed to realize is that the IMF and the World Bank and the United Nations are more powerful than Tinubu. And because Tinubu wants to remain in power, he's doing their bidding without blinking. Tinubu is dancing to the tune of the IMF and the World Bank and the CIA and the UN without thinking about the interest of Nigerians. This is a fact that Uju Kennedy Ohanneye failed to realize. And perhaps now she will be seeing the true colors of Tinubu and the IMF. Because after she gave that interview, I guess the IMF now put their machinery to work. And what do you know? She was sacked as a minister. Here's the danger. I am not making a case for Uju Kennedy Ohanneye, but here's the danger. If you look at the ministers that were sacked, some of them were not performing, some were performing. And then if you take a look at the ministers that were appointed now, and then you ask yourself, particularly when you consider Minister of Education and the designate to that ministry now, you'll ask yourself, is it in the interest of Nigeria and Nigerians that these people were appointed, or that some of the other ministers were sacked? In my opinion, it is not. It is simply Tinubu dancing to the tune of the IMF and the World Bank, trying to get the IMF to fully support him in order for him to get a second term in office. That's what this is all about. It's not about performance for Nigeria and Nigerians. It is not. Make no mistake, Nigerians. You are the ones that will free yourself. There is only one solution to Nigeria, and it starts with the Food and Social Welfare Law. Engage with it. If not, every other thing that you see, they have opened a new ministry now, Ministry of Livestock. It is all going to just be paper, 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 and nothing to show on ground unless we embrace the Food and Social Welfare Program for Nigerians.